أهلا بكم. Um, Seth asked me to just speak a little bit about my story learning Arabic, and some of my study habits and some of the things that I've done, which had helped me to reach an advanced level of Arabic fairly quickly. So first, I started studying Arabic a year and 3 months ago, and I took 101, took 102 over the spring and summer, took 201 in the fall, and then I took 202 and 423R, which is the newspaper current events debate type of class. And so I'm actually also going to do an assignment and an internship with the church in Jordan. I'll be flying out in a couple weeks. And so I just wanted to explain a little bit about how you can use Anki or Anki to assist you in your learning of Arabic, and in what ways it might be able to increase your potential. So the first thing is, I found out about Anki when I was a missionary in England. I was called to London South. I'm English speaking, and then after I got there, I was assigned to speak Mandarin Chinese. And so I learned it in the field, and we were given permission to buy iPod Touches, and our mission president would lock every app except for Anki and the Gospel Library. And so we used that, to memorize characters. And at first, I just downloaded other people's decks and would, memorize 10, 15, 20, or maybe 30 characters a day. And I would learn words from other people's decks that they had made online. And that was really all that I used it for. I thought that it was, it's particularly useful for those studying a language outside of an immersion environment, because you have opportunities to interact with the new words or characters more often than you would normally see them. And so that was useful. It also helped me become very good at reading and writing fairly quickly, and helped me memorize a couple thousand words in the first month or so as being a missionary, which then helped obviously get me up to a level where I could communicate and teach lessons fairly quickly. My initial impressions of Anki was that there is a steep learning curve, especially for beginners. It's a powerful program. It uses Python, programming language. But on the other hand, even though it's a powerful language, or a powerful program, it also can do so much that it's easy to get lost in it, and it's easy to use it either incorrectly or not as effectively as you could. And so that was one of my first impressions of using the app, and what I found. And I think it was a little bit more difficult for me as well as a missionary, because we couldn't Google things or YouTube videos on how to do this or that with the app. We were strictly limited to what we could figure out just with the app, and so that limited us somewhat in knowing the full capabilities of the app. What ended up changing was, after I got home from my mission, I continued to use it to maintain the things that I learned on my mission, the Chinese, and then I started using it I started making my own decks for Chinese, and that's what I did with Arabic. So I started Arabic 101, and about a week before I took the class, I went through Al-Kitab and Al-Ba and put in all of the words, and used and stripped the audio from the CD file and put it in onto an Anki card, so I could hear the native recorded audio, as well as see the Shami and the Fusha. The Fusha I color-coded blue, and the Shami I did it into purple, just like the book did. And then I started making my own decks. I'd make it, in class. I'd keep notes. On my page of notes, usually there's a red line down the side of it, and on the other side of that red line, that little margin, 1-inch margin, I would keep notes of all the new the new words that we learned through the day, in class, over homework or whatever. And at the end of the week, I would take an hour and a half to put that all into Anki. And I'd also use example sentences from arabicdictionary.byu.edu to do that as well, to supplement that. And that is what I did from the very beginning of Since 101. And what I did is, I found out what chapters. I just send the professor an email saying, we're going to use Al-Kitab 1, and we're going to do the first 5 chapters for 101 or whatever. So I'd find out how far we do it, and then my goal was to always memorize all of the words for that semester in about a week or two leading up to the start of the semester. So that way the entire semester could be focused on things like pronunciation, accent, word choice, so using the right word, even though we have the English translation, it's the one that Arabs would use, grammar, being able to watch TV shows and have my own curriculum of learning Arabic, and find my own words and my own phrases. And so that was what I did from 101, 102, 201, 202. And that was really helpful. I found that having my Anki deck be a living and breathing deck, meaning that constantly going back in, and when I learned new uses for a word or used it in a context that I didn't really, had never seen it before, all of those kind of things, I would go and update my cards on this app so that I could have an updated app that would be really useful. And sometimes I put notes on there so that, like grammar notes and things like that, so that when study time came, and as I made them, I tagged them, for chapter or Shami, Fusha, or grammar or whatever. And then when a test came around, I could just sort the deck by tag and then learn or review or cram through all of the ones associated with that tag. For example, associated with chapter 4 or grammar principles or colloquial phrases, or etc. And so my use over time has evolved in that now I use it. I still use it for new words, to learn new words, but I reached a point, I think right now I have about 10,000 words in my Anki deck, and so most words that I come across aren't necessarily new words. Most of the times I know the word or I've seen it before. A lot of times though, maybe when I come across a word or I come across something I'm unfamiliar with, it's more the context that it's being used in. Anki is really powerful because you can set things like, do 5 new words a day, but then there are maybe weeks or months where you want to do 50 words a day. And last semester I did a challenge for some extra credit, and I memorized 912 words over 9 or 10 days, and that was cool for me to see that you could do that. Was possible to increase your vocab. And just to give it perspective, 800 to 900 words is pretty much all of Al-Kitab, Alif-Ba, and Al-Kitab version or textbook 2. So it's pretty much all of the words that you would need from 101 to 202, and I think a little bit more. I think all of those words are about like 700 or 650, so a couple hundred more than that. And that took me about 9 days to do. Now I had a little bit of an advantage because I knew most verb roots, and so a lot of times it was easier to memorize a couple new words when you already know the root, and so you're just seeing it in a different form. But that being said, vocabulary is a huge part of language, and Anki kind of takes care of it for you. There have been months where I've done 50 or 75 words a day and maintained that. Some of the challenges of using Anki is the consistency of it. And so for example, I'm looking at my stats right now on my phone, and over the last 365 days, the last year, I've used it every day except for 24 days. And so that includes birthdays, Christmas, my son's birth. Most days I just go on and log and open the app and knock through some reviews, go through the cards, a couple hundred a day. It only takes about 24, 25 minutes. I think right now I'm averaging about 32 and a half minutes a day to maintain a deck of about 10,000 words. And so it's really not a huge time sink, but the benefit of it is huge. It can't be overstated. The other challenge of it is resisting the temptation to just download decks off the internet that either haven't been vetted or have no personal relevance to you. And so in the beginning I did that. In the beginning I would download the 5,000 most common words in Fusha, and I just knocked through it 2 or 3 a day. But I found that some of these words weren't really useful to learn later on. I mean, the first couple thousand words are useful, but once you start getting past about 2,500, 3,000 words, you can get into kind of some obscure words. And so rather than that, I would start just drawing words, making my own decks from things I saw everyday life. So have a conversation with a friend in Arabic, or saw a post on Facebook, read a newspaper. I'm currently working through Harry Potter, the 4th book in Arabic. Come across words that are useful to me, that I see show up. Usually if I just seen it once, I won't add it. Usually if I see it show up twice, then I'll add it to a card, because that means that it's frequent enough where it's not just a one-off type of thing, but it's part of something that should be added to a card. And usually I add it to the card, and there's a little add-on that will add audio automatically, so sometimes I use that. Although because Arabic is such a regular language and it's structured in such a way, after having gone through, I think I've done something like 600,000 reviews or something like that. After a couple 10,000 or so, you get really good at hearing what the word will sound like from just looking at it, because you've done it so many times with audio. And so after that, audio isn't necessarily you don't need it, although it's certainly helpful. You don't necessarily need it. The other thing that I've been spending my time on Anki doing is fixing the pronunciation of my entire sentences. And so I found that because at first I used it mainly for word to word, a 1-to-1, ratio. It would ask you to say, this in Arabic, shajara, and then on the back side of the card it would say tree, and also vice versa. But I found that sometimes when I would speak, even though I'd say each word, I would pronounce it correctly. When I put it in a sentence, I wouldn't have the same fluctuations in tonality that a native would have. And so I started making sentences and recording natives saying the sentence as they normally say it in daily context. And then I would practice. So I'd have a card with a little sentence like Ija wa Allah jabu, which is speak of the devil, right? It literally means Ija, he came, wa Allah jabu, and God bring him. A speak of the devil. Anyway, and so I'd record that little phrase, record someone saying it, and then work on saying the entire sentence exactly like a native. I record myself, and the app has a little function where you can record your own voice and play it back. And so I'd match that with the native recorded voice, and so that's what I've been really focusing on lately. I still learn about 2 to 3 new words a day. Occasionally I'll do weeks where I'll learn 50 words a day or something, but most of the time I found that you can do a lot in Arabic with a couple thousand words. And so the example I gave was before I did this challenge of learning 1,000 or 912 words, and these were common newspaper words. It was all drawn from newspaper headings, and there were the words. It was a post-study abroad class, and so they were words that most post-study abroad students didn't know. We all kept our own individual 3 words a day little log, and then at the end the teacher combined it all and then gave it to all of us and said, okay, memorize these, and then gave some extra credit. And most people memorize 50, maybe 100, maybe 150, and I decided to memorize all of them. Before I did this, I'd pick up a newspaper and I could read the headlines, maybe 80% of the headlines. But when I got to the article, it was pretty difficult, especially when I started getting really detailed. After doing this, I could understand about 85-90% of the entire article, the actual newspaper article, even when it got pretty detailed and pretty specific, especially if it was things to do with economics, business, or political science. Those are things that a lot of the words had to do with. If I read things about sports, I'm a little bit iffy, and if I read things about entertainment, sometimes I don't understand as much. Maybe that understanding drops from about 90 to maybe about 75. So huge benefit, and a lot of use that I've derived from Anki. The last thing that Seth wanted me to talk about was how Anki is not a magic wand or a panacea, and that is certainly true. There are 4 things. There are 4 skills in any language. That's speaking, writing, listening, reading, writing. Anki will help you with vocabulary, which is the base of all of those. But all of those consist of elements other than just vocabulary. And so vocabulary can get you, especially in reading, if you read, you only need to understand some basic grammar principles. Probably by 201, you know enough grammar principles where if you knew all the vocab, you could understand it without a problem. And so vocab, I find, is the one thing that Anki is really, really good at, as well as pronunciation, both sentences and individual words, because you're able to hear it, repeat it, say it again, and then it's on a spaced repetition program after that. And so those are the big things that I would say Anki is useful for, but it is not perfect in everything. You need to get out there and speak and listen and hear people say things in different ways, because you can only record one way in Anki. And so if you hear people speak, I'm in San Diego right now, and this last week I went to the Arabic branch, and they use the Iraqi dialect, and even though they were saying words that I'd heard 100 times, I was so used to hearing in Jordanian or Palestinian Shami dialect that when they spoke in Iraqi it was a little bit difficult, but that's something that you can't get from Anki. Anki can't give you random dialects or recordings, it only has one, so that's its drawback, but very useful. Text me or email me. Seth has my contact numbers. If you have any questions about how to use it, if there are things that you want to do on it, and you maybe have some questions about how you might be able to use Anki to meet a certain goal you have, let me know. I'm more than happy to work on it. I'm still learning things myself, but I've been using it now for almost 5 years, and it's been really useful. So yeah, thanks, and we'll see you around.